And with that, one of the great left tackles in the history of football, 11 NFL seasons and 11 Pro Bowls. Yeah, he was good day one, is Joe Thomas, NFL Network analyst, joining us now via the Cowherd Global Satellite Network. All right, so let's just get to this. I do think Cleveland's going to be a playoff team. I think they're going to win 9 games. I don't know what they're going to look like in September, so you tell me. What are you hearing? What are you seeing, Joe, from the Browns at camp?
Well, this year it's all about managing expectations, as you talked about. Last year, they came in with some high expectations, the Browns players and coaches, and even the front office wanted to talk about how great things were going to be. And obviously, it didn't exactly turn out the way everybody had hoped and expected in Cleveland. And so this year, it's all about managing expectations. Don't go in and give anybody the impression that you're going to blow the world away, especially with this pandemic-shortened season, the pandemic-shortened offseason, a new head coach, new offensive coordinator. So I think right now the Browns are going to be better than people expect, but the big thing for them will just be to kind of go in and try to sneak up on some people, especially early on in the season.
So it's interesting. In Chicago, they've named Mitch Trubisky the starter, and the GM and the coach, they're just laying praise on Mitch Trubisky, and we've already seen 42 starts. You can fool the media. You can fool fans. It is hard to fool players. Do you believe Bear players think Mitch Trubisky can take them to a special place?
The Bear players will not believe that Mitch Trubisky is going to take them to that special place, that Super Bowl, until he can show it on the field. You know, when you look at his career, he's had a few good games here and there, but he hasn't been able to put it together consistently. And if you want to be able to lead a team and you want to be able to stand in that huddle and convince people that what you're going to call right now when it's 3rd and 10 and you need a play is something that he is going to be able to deliver on, you got to be able to do that consistently. And if you want to take your team to the playoffs, if you want to take your team to the Super Bowl as a quarterback, you got to be able to do it week in and week out. And so far, Mitch Trubisky has not been able to do that. And it didn't help at all last season when he kind of dealt with some of the things in the media where he seemed like mentally he was a little bit taken aback by what people were saying about him outside the building, where he was turning TVs off in their facility. And so those are all things that players on that roster are going to think about. And they're going to wonder about until Mitch is able to do it consistently on that field.
You know, it's interesting. So when you go to camp, and I've asked players this many times, you were great right out of the chute at left tackle. But now, not everybody is. But generally, players can watch the draftees, and you can tell by about 5 or 6 practices, okay, we missed on this guy, or this guy's really special. Should it be concerning that Jordan Love, first-round pick for the Packers, they moved up to get him, is not even the backup? He's 3rd. He's behind a guy that was undrafted. Does that tell you that, I mean, what are Green Bay players thinking? When Jordan Love, we could have gone out and gotten a starter, he's 3rd on the depth chart. What do you think Packer players think? Does that mean anything?
I guarantee they're scratching their head going, why would we waste an opportunity to give Aaron Rodgers a weapon so that we can win right now for a guy that we're going to draft in the 1st round, and then he's not even going to be the 2nd string quarterback? To me, if I'm in that room, I'm expecting the head coach to address the team and talk about it, right? Because everybody certainly would expect that your number 1 quarterback pick from this year would be the backup at a very minimum. And when he's not, everybody's going to kind of wonder and say, well, why not? And if you're a head coach and you have to address why your quarterback that you took in the 1st round is not the backup quarterback, then there's definitely some questions. And there's a lot of people kind of scratching their head thinking, well, maybe we should be playing for this year and not playing for the future, because we got a pretty good guy at quarterback right now in Aaron Rodgers, who did pretty well for us last season. So I think it just adds a little bit of a question mark. And some of the players in that locker room are probably maybe starting to wonder what the front office is doing, what they were thinking. Because when you're looking at Jordan Love, you're saying, why wouldn't he be number 2, right? If Aaron Rodgers got dinged up for a couple weeks, you'd want to give him that valuable experience. If for some reason Aaron was going to be out most of the season, you're not going to have a better opportunity with Tim Boyle as the backup in there than you would with Jordan Love. And you're just wasting an opportunity to give Jordan Love some experience for the future, which is why you drafted him in the first place, for the future. So it really doesn't jive with what they were trying to tell us about why they picked him in the first place, now that he's not even the backup quarterback going into the season.
You know, it's interesting. Kansas City, Joe Thomas joining us. Kansas City, Andy Reid made a great point yesterday. He said, you know, A lot of teams get to a Super Bowl and then they party. He goes, we couldn't party because of the pandemic. And if you think about it, Joe, because the economy closed down, there weren't a lot of endorsements thrown at players. And if you really look at last year, had Miami not beaten New England in Week 17, they would have been a 3 seed. They would have been in the wild card round. Is that my takeaway on Kansas City is they really aren't close to where I think they'll get. They didn't play particularly well in the playoffs. They trailed Tennessee. They trailed Houston. They trailed San Francisco. Like, I don't see a step back for Kansas City. Do you worry that Mahomes won so fast, he got the ring so fast, that there is this natural letdown?
Well, I think there's always going to be a letdown when you're a Super Bowl winner because you've reached the pinnacle of everybody's career, of everything that you've always wanted since you started playing football. But I think the great thing with Kansas City is Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, they're very stable and steady personalities, right? Andy Reid wants you to believe that there would have been all this partying if it wouldn't been for the pandemic. But Andy Reid is just the same guy every single day. That's what the players love about him. That's what the fans love about him. Everybody that's ever worked for him loves him because he treats every day the same and he treats every player exactly the same. So whether they win the Super Bowl or they don't even go to the playoffs, I feel like the offseason for Andy Reid and his team is going to feel very, very similar. He doesn't ride the roller coaster like a lot of coaches, but that's what makes him great. And so I think, there's a potential to have a little bit of a letdown, but for the most part, when you've got Andy Reid and you've got a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, so I think they both understand, hey, we did win the Super Bowl, but that doesn't mean we don't have anything to work on. The reports out of Kansas City was they had a really good competitive camp. There wasn't guys that were, resting on their laurels, just kind of reflecting on the greatness of winning the Super Bowl. And so I think that'll really play really well for them this season. But in addition, I think this is a season where if you have an offense that have experience being in that offense with the same players, the same scheme, the same coaching staff, that's going to be an enormous advantage because of the limited offseason that a lot of these teams have had. And so being in that Andy Reid offense for Patrick Mahomes now, year 3, I think is going to be a tremendous advantage. And you're going to see that especially early on in the season.
So I don't like New England or the Raiders this year. Many do. And they both really struggled in the last 7 to 8 weeks. I think it's very difficult to be a bad football team, have no OTAs and no preseason, and just flip a switch. I think in football, those bad teams need to have an OTA, a preseason, get the bad vibes out, get some new personnel in. I don't like New England. I don't like the Raiders because of that. In your career, does it matter how you finish the previous year, the last 6-7 weeks?
I think it does matter. And we talked about it when I was a rookie. We were going into the last week of the season, and we really had nothing on the line because we needed the Tennessee Titans to lose in order for us to get into the playoffs. But we still played hard, and Romeo Crennel was our head coach at the time, and he gave a very passionate and what I agree with what he had to say argument in that game. And he said, how you finish is the momentum that you're going to carry through the offseason. Whether we make the playoffs or not has nothing to do with what we do in week 17. But if we play well, we'll be able to build on that confidence from this week through the offseason, and we'll have a building block right there. Because if you go into the offseason with a letdown, if you go into the offseason sliding towards the end of the season, there's going to be a lot of question marks about, are we the team that started the season, or did people figure us out and maybe we weren't as good as we thought we were from earlier on in the season? So if you're a team that kind of backs into the playoffs and then maybe loses right off the bat, you're going to have a lot of question marks, and there's going to be a lot of wondering about maybe who you really are in the offseason. And without OTAs, with no preseason games, with limited training camp, you really have no opportunity to kind of prove to yourself and to build that confidence back up that, maybe we are a really good team. We are the team that showed up much better earlier on in the season, and that a blip on the radar at the end of the season was not who we are. So certainly I definitely buy into that. But I think with New England specifically, like, they've got a lot of question marks on offense for the first time in a long time. And with a new quarterback working with a new system potentially, it's going to be a big learning curve, I think, for those guys in New England. And there's going to be some pointing fingers, I feel like, when things don't go as well as they're used to.
Yeah, at Joe Thomas 73 on Twitter's got the Tomahawk podcast with Andrew Hawkins, former NFL player. Good dude, Joe Thomas. See, we like Cleveland, folks. We bring Cleveland people on all the time. We even say nice stuff about Cleveland right now. There you go.
Thank you. There you go.
Good talking to you, bud.
Thanks, Colin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.